So let's record this. Again, welcome everybody. We'll get started. We looked the other day, building vocabulary a couple different ways. So if you haven't done the prefixes and suffixes, or the fancy word for those are affixes, which suffixes at the beginning and the prefixes at the beginning and suffixes at the end, changes the meaning of the word. Check that out. Please utilize that. That's definitely going to build your vocabulary. Then we looked at Greek and Latin roots, seeing those patterns, and we worked on those as well. Today, we're looking specifically at context clues. We spent last Tuesday also looking at super fun stuff for some people. Other people do not like it, but we looked at the 3 branches of government, which I want to play one of the videos that I already sent you real quick. So we looked at 3 branches of government and how they interact with each other and how they sort of hold each other accountable and don't let one get more powerful than the other. So let's look real quick at that. Okay, let me share screen to context clues. So we're going to look actually first at context. That's not where I want to be. Context clues. Bingo. So you'll be getting a copy of this, and I'll make this smaller. You'll be getting a copy of this, which goes over context clues, what they are, what types they are, and how you can, I call these cheat sheets. I think they're good for utilizing them when you're looking at iexcel.com. And moving on to that. So let's look at this other document. This is I like this. This is like a really good visual for me. So the 5 types of context clues, we're going to look at this in a little bit. Definition, explanation, restatement or synonym, and contrast which would be antonym, your inference, and then your punctuation, to look at that as well. So let's stop sharing real quick, and we will, I gotta admit Stephanie back in. I don't know why it keeps popping people off. So technical difficulties, I guess, right? All right, so let's look at wrong Safari. And now I'm having technical difficulties. Let's look at this one. This one. Where's the one I want? Bingo, YouTube. All right, can you see what I'm seeing?
Yep.
Very good, okay, let's look at that. So let's look at the previous one. That's not what I want to look at. Let's look at the watch list. All right, so real quick blurb about the 3 types of, the checks and balance system. We were going to look at this one, I believe. Yes, this one. Quick flyby.
U.S. government has 3 branches, or 3 parts.
No, it was this one.
These
the FLBS one. I don't know why it's not wanting to work. All right, so we're going to check this one out real quick, just as a review, and then you should have looked at it on newsela.com.
Ever heard
heard of checks and balances? No, not for a bank account. The checks and balances I'm talking about are for the U.S. federal government. The Constitution divides the U.S. government into three branches: the legislative, the executive, and the judicial. Each branch has its own job to do. Checks and balances keep each branch of the government from using their job to become too powerful. How? Here's an example. Congress is a legislative branch. It's split into the House and the Senate, so it already has some checks built right in. The main job of Congress is to create bills that one day may be turned into laws. But Congress can't go around making any laws they want and expecting everyone to be okay with it. That's what parents are for, right? So when Congress passes a bill, it goes to the president for approval. As the head of the executive branch, the president can sign the bill into law or veto it. The president's decision is a check on the lawmaking power of Congress. But what if Congress doesn't agree with the president? Congress can override the president's veto if 2/3 of its members vote to do so. Even though this is very difficult to do, it's how Congress is able to check the power of the executive branch. But that's not all. The judicial branch of government, or the Supreme Court, can also check lawmaking power. If a law is challenged in court, a judge might decide that the law is unconstitutional. That's like saying it should have never been made. It can even throw out a law that has gone through Congress and been approved by the president. Now, don't think the Supreme Court's just there to delete everyone else's work. Their power of interpreting law and settling disputes has checks too. For instance, Congress has the power to make an amendment to the Constitution. This is a long and difficult process, but it can make that law they wanted to pass constitutional. In addition, it's the president's duty to select and appoint federal judges. This check prevents the Supreme Court from creating its own rules for selecting judges. That's good because who knows? I might want to be a judge someday. And I don't want somebody making up new rules to stop me. After the president selects a federal judge, the Senate, part of the legislative branch, must approve his choice. This is a check on the executive branch. It makes sure the president isn't picking judges without the Senate's consent. Congress has final say on the number of federal courts and judges. This is another check on the judicial branch's power. The president can do more than pick judges. The president has the power to issue an executive order to deal with some situations, like if there's an emergency. Maybe he needs to send troops overseas to stop a rebellion and rescue Americans in danger. But even executive orders have limits. Only Congress can declare war. That means unless Congress supports the executive order, the troops will eventually be called back. Plus, Congress must approve paying for these actions, so the president can't keep the troops in action if Congress doesn't give him the money. The Supreme Court could rule the executive order to be unconstitutional, just like it could a law. The president is the leader of the executive branch, but if he gets power hungry or starts breaking laws, then the House can vote to impeach. That means bring charges against the president. Once impeached, the president goes on trial. Both the legislative and judicial branch can check the power of the executive through the impeachment process. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court presides over the trial. The Senate decides whether the president is guilty. This is a serious check. As of 2013, it's only happened twice, and neither was found guilty. One of those presidents was a fan of giving out pardons. Have you ever heard of a pardon? It's like forgiveness. The president has the power to pardon, which is a check on the judicial branch, since the courts can punish criminals. Sometimes the president or other executive leaders can make treaties with other countries, but the Senate must approve any agreement before it's official. If it seems like the president is checked a lot, it's true. From the beginning, Americans needed to be sure no president could take over and abuse their rights. The president can check the legislative branch by calling a special session of Congress. This might be due to an emergency, like the conflict situation I talked about before. Also, the vice president is president of the Senate. He or she can break a tie vote in the Senate. So, do you have this checks and balances thing down? Just remember, being a responsible citizen is super important. Responsible citizens make sure to voice their opinions and make the government work for them. After all, they are the most important check on the government.
Florida Virtual. That's kind of funny. So I know that was a lot going on with that in regards to the checks and balances. Check out the articles. I gave you another one that was blank, right? And then I gave you another one with notes with it that I had done all of the note taking and all of the, I believe I have the answers on there too. So check that out. Spend some time doing that. We're going to move from that to look at, and again, the checks and balances are only to keep each other in check, and they are many, many, many different examples you can think of. Brown versus Board of Education, where we had a law that Congress put, which was separate but equal, and we determined, the judicial branch or the court system determined that was not a constitutional law. It inherently was unequal. Then the executive president, the executive branch, enforced that new law saying separate but equal was not, it was inherently unequal, and that's where we had integration of schools, okay, with different races. So just one other example, you'll see that one in the article that I sent you. But let's look right now real quick at context clues. Now, when we're talking about context clues, we want to think about a word I don't know or you don't know, and how do we identify it? We already looked at if we know the prefix, if we know the suffix, if we know the Greek and Latin root, awesome. But what happens if we just don't know a phrase or something like that? We want to be able to look at all of the information around that particular word and come up with a conclusion about, even if it's being able to know if it's a negative or a positive vocabulary word versus something like that. So let's look at context clues, and hopefully we can move on from there, and we will look at just this little video right now, and then I will give you guys, or we'll review it on IXL real quick. So let's look at 2 of these videos.
Or reading because of an unfamiliar word, and there's no way you can use a dictionary because you don't.
I don't like that one, how it sounds. I'll send that to you. Let's look at this one.
Context clues at Grammar Songs by Melissa. What are context clues? More importantly, how can understanding context clues make me a better reader? Let's get started. Context clues are hints a reader can use to discover the meanings of unfamiliar words and phrases. Did someone say discover? Yes, Detective Waddle. When we read, we have to look for clues to discover the meanings of words we don't know. Let me show you. When we read, sometimes we will come upon an unfamiliar word that we don't know and have trouble sounding out. We could choose to stop reading and find a dictionary, but this can take away from our comprehension or understanding of the story by interrupting the flow. Now, what was happening? This is why using context clues is so important. I know what clues are, but what is this thing you call context? Context is like the setting of a word. You can probably guess what is missing from this picture based on the setting or context around the missing object. Sure, a dog. Using context clues is similar. Con is a prefix meaning with. Text means written words. As a reader, you are looking for clues within the written words to help you understand unfamiliar words or phrases. How will I know where to find them? A word's context includes the words and sentences around it. This is where you can find clues to the meanings of a word that you don't know. What clues do you see? Well, we know Katie was something. So we need to read the rest of the sentence to figure this out. When her little sister kept messing up her room. So what could Katie be if her little sister is messing up her room? Mad? Frustrated? No, this word starts with an A. Angry? Aggravated. Katie was aggravated when her little sister kept messing up her room. Aggravated makes sense when you consider the context. Exactly. Authors use different types of context clues. They might use examples, synonyms, antonyms, or even definitions. For instance, the restaurant's ambiance, including its quiet music, flowers, and candlelight, made it a perfect place for Valentine's Day. If you don't know what ambiance is, the examples, quiet music, flowers, and candlelight, let you know that ambiance is the special atmosphere or mood of a particular environment. Sometimes authors use synonyms or words that mean almost the same thing. The child's ability to perform gymnastics was apparent or obvious at an early age. If you are unfamiliar with the word apparent, the synonym clue obvious makes this sentence easy to understand. Sometimes authors will use antonyms to help the reader grasp an unfamiliar word by stating the opposite. Carla was meticulous with her assignments, unlike her brother Ralph, who scribbled all over the page. If you don't know what meticulous means, the antonym phrase scribbled all over would let you know that Carla was neat and careful with her assignments, unlike her brother Ralph. Sometimes authors actually provide definitions within the text if using a less common word. Abby was repulsed by the spider crawling up her arm. She had a feeling of disgust and dislike. If you are unfamiliar with the word repulsed, the author clearly defines it as a feeling of disgust and dislike. I can find context clues in the words. Exactly. Remember, context clues can be examples, synonyms, antonyms, or definitions. Let's read a paragraph and look for the context clues a reader might find if he or she was unfamiliar with the underlined words. It was time for the band to march on the field. The crowd was ecstatic. Ecstatic? I don't know what that means. Well, this would be a good time to look for context clues. Remember, if you can't find a clue in the sentence you just read, you should keep reading. A word's context includes the words and sentences around it. Let's start again at the beginning so we can gather all the context surrounding the word ecstatic. It was time for the band to march on the field. The crowd was ecstatic. People screamed and cheered, showing their excitement. I see some clues. That's great. What do you see? People screamed and cheered and showed excitement. Very good. Screamed and cheered would be examples of people who are ecstatic. People who are ecstatic are excited. Let's keep reading. The music intensified or increased in volume. What does intensified mean? Well, let's look for some context clues. I think I see one. Increased. Very good. Increased is a synonym for intensified. Let's keep reading. Unlike her timid friends, Morgan was unafraid to perform in front of the roaring crowd. What is timid? What context clues can we find? Unlike means opposite. Morgan was unafraid. So, if Morgan's friends are the opposite of Morgan, then her friends are afraid. Yes, timid means afraid or shy. The author used an antonym as a clue to help us. Let's continue. After the show, the crowd gave a standing ovation. Ovation? There aren't many clues in this sentence, except we know there is standing going on. Maybe we should keep reading. Great idea. The fans stood and clapped to show their appreciation for such a great performance. Wow! The author uses a definition as a clue to help the readers understand what is happening. An ovation is when the whole crowd stands, claps, and cheers. That was a great context clue. Yes, it was.
All right, so let's look at our little cheat sheet. I'd like to go over that real quick. All right, so they're going to use this word haberdashery, which is not a commonly used word here at least. So through these 5 examples, definition or explanation, we are looking for the word's meaning or phrase and explained immediately after. Okay, so here's the example. Haberdashery, which is a store that sells men's clothing, is becoming more and more common today. So rather than a boutique, which would be for females, a haberdashery is a kind of a fashion store for men. Restating or a synonym would be this. So we're using the same, think synonym, same, or similar. So Lou was sent to the haberdashery to find a new suit. He needed to wear one for his uncle's wedding. Because the sentence says that Lou would find a suit at a haberdashery, you can now think that this is a place where you'd find clothes for men, or clothes for men are sold there. Contrast. So you're using the opposite example here, or antonym, okay? Lou wanted to go to the haberdashery, but Anne wanted to go to shop at the boutique. The signal word but tells the reader that an opposite thought is going to be stated, okay? So if the guy wants to go to this place and shop, and she wants to go to this place, and we can only assume that one would be for males, one would be for females. Inference, okay, or kind of a generalization here, is sometimes a word or phrase is immediately clarified within the same sentence. Relationships which are not directly apparent or inferred or implied, so it is implied. The reader must look for clues within, before and after the sentence in which the word is used. So the haberdashery was Lou's favorite place. He loved shopping for nice suits. People who worked there were so kind and helpful. So you can assume that he's a guy. It's one of his favorite places to shop. He can get suits or guys' clothing there. You can assume or infer that it is a place where you can get men's clothing. So the next one, punctuation. We're looking at, readers can also use clues of punctuation and type style to infer meanings such as quotation marks, showing the word as special meaning, dashes, parentheses, or brackets enclosing a definition, and or italics. So you're gonna have an example here. Tom's father was a haberdasher or a men's shopkeeper. In the story, Tom's father was a haberdasher, and then in parentheses, men's shopkeeper. In the story, or in the story, Tom's father was a haberdasher, or, okay, men's shopkeeper. And then Tom's father was a haberdasher. He had a clothing store for men. And that's all the examples given there for in regards to punctuation. Let's look real quick and try these out. So you can turn your microphones off so you can help me out with this. If it will work, what happened here? All right, so let's look at IXL. What is happening? Can you see what I'm seeing or no? You cannot.
It's frozen.
It's frozen, good.
There we go.
I love technology. So we have 27 people in class and only 13 on this, or 12 now, 11 on our thing. So we got to get people in class. Although online you can look at it later. So real quick, we are going to go to language. We are going to go to third, just for practice together. And then we're going to double H, okay? Let's find it, context clues. We're determining the meaning of words using synonyms. So this is specifically synonyms. So you will help me out with these, and I apparently need to sign in again. I love this technology. Working on all cylinders tonight. Next one, last night my brother whined, just pretend you don't know that, all through dinner. When mom asked him to finish his carrots, he complained even more. So what's the word that it would be the synonym to whined?
Complained.
Very good. And that's what
Complained.
we're talking about, that being within there. So we are able to, from this section, you either, if you don't know whined or you don't know complained, you know one or the other. We can assume that whined means continued or wouldn't stop, drank and ate, or grumbled and cried.
Continued and wouldn't stop.
So we can actually substitute this. So we could say, last night my brother whined, or we'll substitute it for continued and wouldn't stop all through dinner. When mom asked him to finish his carrots, he continued and stopped even more. That doesn't make sense. You can also go, last night my younger brother drank and ate all through dinner. That makes sense. When mom asked him to finish his carrots, he drank and ate even more. That doesn't make sense. Okay. Now let's do the substitution here. Last night, my younger brother grumbled and cried all through dinner. When mom asked him to finish his carrots, he grumbled and cried even more. Does that make sense on both?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's the one that makes sense on both. Okay. And that's a really good example of looking. Sometimes we want to finish a test quicker than we should, but looking at all the sections or all of the options and really evaluating the heck out of it instead of going, boom, I know that's B. No, take a second, read it. Okay. David tried to shove the sofa again, but it wouldn't move. When his sister Zoe got home, together they managed to push the couch against the wall. So what is the synonym for shove?
Pushed.
Push. Very good.
Push.
Awesome possum. Now, we're looking to use substitution here, or we may be able to just get this. We're trying to get the definition for shove. Does that mean drag away from? And then I'll substitute it. Together they managed to drag away from the couch against the wall. You wouldn't be able to drag away from the couch against the wall. Press. Together they managed to press against the couch against the wall. No. Or actually that is it. Pull back on. Together they managed to pull back on the couch against the wall. We're talking about pressing rather than pulling, right?
Mm-hmm.
That makes the best sense. All right. Red-tailed hawks soar high in the sky. They often fly above the trees searching for rabbits, mice, and squirrels to eat. Soar. What is my synonym?
Fly.
Fly.
Good. Very good. We're submitting that. We're getting a terrific. Now, soar and fly, we substitute this. They often stay still, dive quickly, move through the air. Which do you think?
Move through the air.
Bingo. Bingo, bingo. Actually, you guys can unmute yourselves. I'm gonna unmute or ask to unmute Marshall so we can get participation. Let me get this one off. Jake was tired from a long day playing ball outside. By dinner time, he was so weary, word we don't know, mystery word, that he had to be exhausted from the excused from the table, excuse me. Jake was so tired from a long day of playing ball outside. By dinner time, he was so weary. So what's our synonym word for weary?
It's either tired or what's the other one?
So it's
Yep, I think tired.
We're gonna do tired, yeah. Super duper. And now why is it tired? We could say Jake was sleepy, gentle, lively. Was he sleepy? Yes. Bingo. Okay. I don't know how to say that. Champs-Élysées in Paris, France, might be the most beautiful avenue in the world. It offers a lovely view of landmarks like the Eiffel Tower. This well-known street is also lined with shops and restaurants. What do we think?
Street.
Avenue. Maybe street
Bingo.
or
Yeah,
landmark.
thank
Street.
you. So this street, so this well-known road, this well-known path, this well-known coast.
Road.
Road.
Yeah, thanks, Marsh. Terrific. All right, so let's move on past synonyms to the next section, which is in third grade, it's HH. It might be something different in the other grades. We are looking real quick to this one and trying to get the context clues here. So do we have any readers out there? Because we got about 8 minutes before we kind of wrap things up. Anyone volunteering? No one? I'm gonna have to Venmo you guys, pay you guys to read.
In 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave a passionate speech in Washington, D.C. In the speech, he discussed his lifelong dream of equality and freedom. He believed that all Americans should have equal rights. Over 200,000 people attended the speech. This event, along with King's other work, helped get new laws passed in the United States. Among other things, these laws made sure that African Americans could vote. Dr. King's work changed the world.
Okay, so he gave a certain type of speech. In the speech, he discussed his lifelong dream. Would you, I think of sometimes when I'm going through these, is it a negative or a positive word? Is passionate a positive word?
Yes.
So I would put like a
Yes.
plus mark over there. And if you're discussing your lifelong dream, are you like super boring about it?
No.
Like, so you're not going to be dull or boring. It's not going to be unpopular because those are negative terms. Like, you wouldn't be like, yeah, my goal is to become a teacher and really impact a lot of people. And that'll be like really good, like super fun. No, he's talking about a this subject matter is very, very important to him. It's a lifelong dream. Okay. It's talking about everybody deserving certain rights. Okay. In front of a lot of people, okay? So he's not going to be unpopular, not going to be dull, okay? Now, having loud volume. This is the one to slip you up. This is like test taking 101. This is to slip you up, okay? Because you're thinking he's got to be loud if he's in front of 200,000 people, okay? Which is true. They had really good speakers. But what's a better answer?
Hey, showing strong feeling.
Yeah, so this is why we take a second and we want to analyze this question and the 4 options pretty deeply so that we don't screw up and say, yeah, I mean, he's giving a speech in Washington, D.C. There's 200,000 people there. He's got to have been really, really loud. Well, no, he's talking about equal rights. He's talking about the voting ability for African Americans as well as all these different things, okay? Lifelong dreams, he's gonna be very, very, very showing some strong, strong feelings, okay?
Yeah, because you can associate passion with feeling in a way, because it's a type of feeling to be.
Mm-hmm. And now we're supposed to look at the best section that shows how he feels, okay? And it's gonna give you probably a couple of options here, but I think our best one is in his speech, he discussed his lifelong dream. Okay, we discussed that. That was a really kind of like highlighted in my mind. Let's see if we got it. Yeah, buddy. All right, so let's do another one. Do I have another reader? You gonna make me read? Killing me. All right. On a campfire trip, it can be fun to build a campfire. Just remember these important safety tips. First, pick a good spot. A fire ring that all... That's already
Can I
built.
have a drink?
What?
I'm talking.
You want
Oh, he's got to get a drink. Been built in line with stones is
Can
the
I
best.
have a drink?
Make sure the fire is at least 15 feet away from tents, trees, and dry grass. Keep a bucket of water and a shovel nearby. When you build the fire, keep it small. You can enjoy the fire by singing songs or telling stories around it. Before going to sleep, make sure there is no remaining embers. We don't know that word, okay? Pour water over them and stir so that nothing nearby can catch fire. We are trying to understand what's going on here with this word, mystery word, embers. Small pieces of burning wood. I could say that's a possibility because we're talking about a campfire. Mats sitting on the ground. Is it? Now I'm just going to substitute that. Before going to sleep, make sure there are no remaining mats sitting on the ground. That's possible, right? That's totally possible, okay? But we need to think deeper and look at the context here. Branches and pieces of dry grass, okay? So we're gonna, before we go to sleep, we're gonna make sure there are no remaining pieces of dry grass. I don't know if that's it. That doesn't sound very intelligent to me. So let's do the next one. Stones around a campfire. Before going to sleep, make sure there are no remaining stones around the campfire. Are you going to lift all these stones? That's what I'm thinking in my mind. So it's between these two. What's our best answer? Small pieces of burning wood or mats sitting around the ground, sitting on the ground?
Small pieces of burning
small
wood.
pieces of wood?
Yes, okay. And I'm only using this third grade one as an example. You start there. Then we want you to move. Your goal is to move to the 9th and 10th, 11th and 12th grade levels where I'll just go to one in a second. It's going to be just a little more difficult. So let's see if we can get this section of ambers here. I guess it's this first one. Let's see if we've got it. Nope. Pour water. Okay, I guess that's better. I'm not going to argue with them today. All right, so when we look at I just went back and it's stuck. When we look at that same section at the 9th grade, it's going to look a little bit different. The context clues. It's going to obviously the vocabulary is going to be a little more in depth, like this word eschewed, all right? Things like that. That's going to be a little more difficult. So, and let's try to do one. When Michael decided to become vegan, he eschewed meat, eggs, dairy, and embraced animal-friendly alternatives like tofu, almond milk. In the process, he became a proficient cook and excellent baker. So if he did something, he became something, so he did something with meat, but then he embraced. So I'm looking at that as like an antonym. It's the reverse of embraced. So as a vegan, you would not eat meat, eggs, dairy, and eating things like almond milk and tofu, which is a soy product, plant-based product. And it uses this little section, animal-friendly alternatives. So we're looking for the best antonym, okay? So, and embraced. Eschewed is got rid of, so embraced. Keep it up, Buttercup. Next one, we are trying to define this, okay, using that antonym embraced. We'd like to get the reverse of it. So avoid, kept away from, consumed, imbibed, which means to eat, or harmed and destroyed. Did he harm the meat and the eggs and the dairy? No. Did he consume the meat and the eggs and the dairy? No, because he's only eating like plant-based products. Or he avoided or kept away from the meat, eggs, and dairy. That's what
Hey,
that's the substitution. Okay?
Yeah.
All right, very good. So, a couple things. I want to look at diagnostic. I want to look at the diagnostic section. We'll look at everybody, see my students' levels. You can see this, right? So we have some students that have gotten into this. If yours is like a small circle like this, you've done enough to finish it, okay? If you have a rather larger section here, you might need to spend some more time. If your name is down here and you have not started yet, please start, okay? Start that diagnostic section, which is that second thing, okay? That's going to give us the best idea. I'm going to use Emily just real quick, of specific math recommendations, okay? Specific things, as well as vocabulary recommendations. I'm sorry, not vocabulary, language arts recommendations. I read vocabulary. And then as you work through them and continue to do the diagnostic, you will see improvement, you will see growth. Then we're going to have you take the practice test. Then we're going to have you take the regular GED. And then we're going to say goodbye to you, okay? We love that you're here, but we'd love to say goodbye. And we'd love to have you walk across the stage, okay? Looking at News ELA real quick. Can you see this?
Yep. Yes.
Yes.
All right, let's look real quick at one that I just assigned you. And this is where you're going to get your science and your social studies, even though we went over some social studies early this section as well as Tuesday. So let's look at my assignments. And we went over this in class with 12 people in class, right? The checks and balances, like we did this together. So we need to have more than one out of the 12 people that did this to get into the checks and balances, okay? So make sure you get on News ELA. If you haven't seen the video, we went over this together and we highlighted, underlined different things. So you should be able to really knock it out of the park, okay? As well as utilizing those. Like if you don't know something about the checks and balances, nothing's wrong for you to go on YouTube and make that happen and learn some more information about that to make this reading easier, okay? Utilize the things for you. I'm gonna stop sharing real quick. We have 6 minutes. And I'm going to give you a little break before math. So if anybody needs to stay and ask any questions, awesome. If not, you are free to go and get prepped for mathematics. Super fun, right? All righty. We'll see you guys soon, okay?
Okay.
See you, Marsh.
See ya.
All right, buddy.